First of all, I want to state that I have always been trying to keep myself somewhat away from politics. So I haven't joined any political party, and I don't think that I will do that in the future. So I'm just an observer. Now, the second thing is that, well, I like numbers. I like working with numbers. In economics, we do have to get hold of a lot of data, use some sophisticated methods to really extract the information from the data and so on and so forth. But I also find that when I try to communicate with the public, which is important, an important thing to do, I must throw away all the technical stuffs. On the other hand, I believe that it is the mandate of every academic that before they come up with their conclusions or even policy recommendations or whatever, they have to go through the academic analysis first. But the details of the academic analysis, well, could be left in in the workshops or academic seminars rather than in some kind of public seminars. So I hope that the reasoning behind will still be rigorous enough. Okay. Now I first want to identify some of the problems that Hong Kong are facing, and indeed Hong Kong has a lot of problems that we need to deal with. Given say about half an hour, it will be impossible for me to do justice to all of these issues. Well, as Eden has mentioned today, there's the policy address, and the policy address is a very good summary of the state of the affairs of Hong Kong now. I haven't read the policy address yet, but supposedly this afternoon I have to respond to some of those inquiries. So after the luncheon, I will have to get myself busy in reading the whole document. So now, as Eden has said, the policy address has to deal with a lot of short-term and long-term politics. I try to refrain myself from that. Okay, so from the observations of the common people, they may find that Hong Kong seems to have a lot of difficulties to meet. I'm always on the optimistic side, but I must also say that that it is a good idea to accept the fact that there have been frustrations in Hong Kong, there have been opportunities missed, and there have been complaints of every sort and so on and so forth. It's much better to recognize these things before we come up with solutions, but before we come up with solutions, we also need to find out what the causes of this are. Okay? My views could be quite different from the views of some of from the views presented in the media, because I do think that what we should say should be solidly based on evidence. Okay? We know that many young people believe that it will be very difficult for them to move up the social ladder. Well, if you ask me which profession has the most contact with this so-called post-80 or post-90 people, then I can claim credit. The professors meet with these post-80 and post-90 students every day. We talk with them, we engage in long hours of discussion with them. So at least I feel that I do have some kind of feel of what they think. And I must also point out that the vast majority of these people are still very rational. The kind of pretty radical complaints that you may encounter in the media is actually belonging only to a minority. Okay, so even though the minority is only making a lot of noises, and some of those noises could be justified, some of this may not be justified. I have to add a footnote there, and that is the vast majority of our students will be very productive people for society in the future. So that means you can feel assured that you can hire UST graduates without any problems, okay? But we also know that the salaries of the university graduates have not been really going up during the last 14 to 15 years or so. This is not entirely accurate, but it's more or less accurate. Some people could get very good salaries. Some people who say go to the investment banks can get very good offers. Okay, say 15 years ago, the local graduates would find it very difficult to get into those jobs. But increasingly, many of our graduates have been given very good offers. Okay, so for some people who have acquired a certain marketable skills, they could be rewarded quite handsomely. However, if we look at the average salary, that does not seem to be going up, and that has frustrated a lot of the people. But for the older generations, many of them believe that the young seems to be wasting the time on a lot of, say, unproductive or useless activities. I belong to the old generation myself, so I sometimes may also have that kind of feeling. But the young people may just need some guidance. Okay. Now, well, one of the so-called deep-level contradictions in Hong Kong is that well, there's an apparent perception that the income disparity has been widening. I want to challenge that view later in just a minute. Okay, income distribution in Hong Kong has always been pretty bad, but the data does not support the idea that it has been widening. Okay. However, indeed, many people do believe that the poor have become poorer and the rich has become richer. So probably if you go out to the people in society and ask them, I would imagine that more than 90% of the people in Hong Kong would believe that. Okay? And perception is important. I mean, even if the perception is wrong, I mean, it's still very important. We have to take that into account. On the other hand, the rich people may also find that they're not really that rich. The business environment in Hong Kong, well, at least for some sectors, may not be that business friendly anymore. Well, if you look at the stock prices, even for the say the real estate stock prices, well, compared to say 1997, well, these share prices have not really gone up that much. Some of them have really gone down. So based on that, one cannot say that these people have really become so much richer than before. Certainly, they want to become richer, and that they would naturally like to maximize their profit. Okay? And any businessman who does not want to maximize profit must not be a very good businessman. Okay? So that is just a natural. Okay? Now, the tenants of the private quarters, and then in Hong Kong, well, according to the census data, only 14% of the people live in, are renting houses, privately. Okay, 30% of them live in publicly provided housing. 14 in private. There are 14% of private tenants. 4% live in dormitories, and 52% own their house. Live in their own houses. Now we need to understand that these numbers, so as to have a feel of the possible politics that may involve if say suddenly some kind of policy will change. Okay, people who have not purchased houses certainly would like houses to house prices to go down a lot. I sold my apartment in September of last year. So I'm hoping that the housing market will collapse. Apparently it has not happened yet. But the reason for me to sell my apartment could be for other reasons. Okay, it's not that I anticipate kind of imminent collapse. I mean, it's nothing to do with that. Okay, but if we try to follow a policy of, say, suppressing housing prices by a big margin, we may create even more problems, just like what happened around the time of 2003. Okay. Now, some regard the tourists from China as locusts. For people who have been living in Hong Kong, you all understand that. But those people are saying, those tourists from China say that, well, they pay real money. They're trying to rescue Hong Kong's economy. They come here to help Hong Kong. But then they seem to be not really welcome. Okay, so we have to figure out what we want. For this tourism from this individual tourist from China, that was a request sent by the Hong Kong government in around 2003 or so. So China tried to accommodate the request, but somehow, after doing that, well, people are saying that, well, you should keep those people. You should not allow that many of them to come. But of course, some business people would very much welcome them to come. If they don't come, I think that Hong Kong's economy will be very much negatively affected. And if the tourists stop coming to Hong Kong, say in about 10 years' time, Hong Kong we have to beg them to come. By this time, the purchasing power will be much higher than that of today. Okay? Now, has Hong Kong been doing well? I like to show this couple of numbers now. In 1990, Hong Kong's GDP was actually equal to 25% of China's entire GDP. So Hong Kong was a really very important. So it's just a tiny place. Hong Kong was equal to 1/4 of that of China. Okay. But today, or last year, it's only 3.1% of China's GDP. And if we try to take into account the differences in prices, and we know that the products in China, on the average, are cheaper than those in Hong Kong. So if we make the adjustment, Hong Kong's GDP is less than 2% of China's GDP. And just look at our neighbor, Shenzhen. Shenzhen's GDP will likely surpass that of Hong Kong in about 3 years' time. I'm talking about the aggregate GDP. Shenzhen has more people, it's around 11 million people. So the per capita income of Shenzhen will not be higher than that of Hong Kong, say in 3 years' time. And I'm talking about the GDP in purchasing power parity. That is after the price differences have been taken into account. But if we do not try to do anything major, in around 20 years' time, Shenzhen's GDP will be 2 times that of Hong Kong. 2 times. In about 10 years, 10 to 12 years, 12 to 13 years' time, Shenzhen's per capita GDP will be higher than that of Hong Kong. So Hong Kong could run into the danger of being marginalized. I'm not predicting that Hong Kong will be marginalized. I'm just using a kind of, say, pessimistic scenario, but if that scenario exists, okay, we certainly want to do something to maintain Hong Kong's competitiveness. Okay, so we do have something that we need to do. Okay, it's not a good idea that we try to close our eyes and then ignore all these kind of things. Okay. Well, officials in China regard Hong Kong as a very difficult book. That is a kind of a translation from the original Chinese statement. when I visited some of these officials in Beijing, I mean, those people who are in charge of Hong Kong affairs, they like to make this kind of statement. Well, to me, to many people in Hong Kong, I think that we don't necessarily believe that it's so hard to understand, but still, it will be necessary for us to make an effort to understand what is going on in Hong Kong. I also want to point out that in society there are people with different views, they have different interests, they have different positions. I often like to use the analogy of this kind of almost plane crash that occurred in the year in the spring of 2001 between, there were some airplanes from the US that was trying to spy on near the Hainan Islands, and then China sent the airplanes there. The US then tried to produce a kind of video recording showing that the airplanes from the Chinese airplanes were very aggressive. They seem to be hitting, they seem to be heading up towards the US planes. So the US was complaining that they were reckless. But then the China part also produced another video recording. And from that video recording, apparently the American planes were trying to head towards the Chinese planes. Now, actually both are correct. We have a great physicist here. This is just relative motion. It depends on the frame of reference. So if I sit here and then I see people moving around, then I would just I say, if you come to me, I just assume that I'm stationary, and you come to me. I'm using myself as the frame of reference, and then from your frame of reference, it seems that as I may be moving towards you. Okay, so no matter how objective we try to be, some people who have different opinions will regard that we are being ideological, and when we look at the other people, we may come up with the same conclusion. But the world is relative, but still we need some kind of more absolute frame of reference. And I believe that the proper frame of reference for our purpose is evidence. We can have different opinions, but everything should be based on evidence. Okay. But then it would be dangerous for us to just ignore other people's views. Even though I disagree with the views of a lot of the politicians in Hong Kong, I think that I still would try hard to understand what they're talking about. Okay, and economics is sometimes called a dismal science. In a sense, it is boring. Why is it boring? Because the definition of economics is the study of people's behavior and how do they behave. We assume that people try to optimize things, but subject to constraints. We pay a lot of attention to all kinds of realistic constraints that the people have to face. So we keep on reminding other people that this policy may not work because this would involve some costs, or perhaps there are some constraints which will make the policy ineffective, and so on and so forth. But the common people often would not like to pay attention to the constraints. Okay, and since we just keep on pointing out these constraints, our profession is quite hated across the world, I would say. Okay, to me, it is fine. Okay, now, we do try to come up with theoretical models, but these models should be based on a narrow set of assumptions. Some of these assumptions may be outrageous, but we try to justify that because we try to come up with predictions. And so long as the predictions are consistent with what is happening in the real world, then methodologically speaking, we believe that that's fine. Okay? I may have slightly misquoted Einstein, but I think this is the sense is correct. So I don't want to make everything as simple as possible so that I can communicate with the public more easily. But there could be limits. If I try to simplify the things too much, then it may not do justice to some of the issues. And then the way to distinguish between myth and reality is to rely on evidence. And I think that numbers, if properly used, can help us a lot. We can very often use some simple numbers to dispel some misconceptions. So I've been developing a habit, not a habit, but even a hobby of always putting down a kind of say a statistical yearbook or some similar publications in front of me. So whenever I write articles even for the popular press, I always have some kind of a statistics yearbook or monthly in front of me. So my data are usually reliable because I'm just copying down those data from the official publications. But of course, the data have to be used correctly. Okay. Now, because of the limitation of time, I will just use a couple of examples to illustrate how important evidence could be. And the first example that I want to use is about income distribution. As I've said, more than 90% of the people in Hong Kong believe that income distribution has become more unequal. Well, how have they come up with this conclusion now? They also seem to have some evidence. So I'm not saying that they come up with this conclusion from nothing. Okay? They also have some evidence. So if we look at some crude measurement of something that we call the Gini coefficient, Hong Kong's Gini coefficient is pretty high, and it seems to be increasing. Say in 1996 it was 0.518, in 2011 it was 0.537. That is high. Now the highest value is 1. 1 would mean that, well, all the income just go to one person. And 0 means that everybody's income distribution is exactly equal. So the lower the Gini is, well, the more people will like it. But we also need to point out that absolute equality in income may not be a good idea. I often like to use the analogy of giving grades to our students. If I tell my class that everybody will get an A, irrespective of how well they perform, usually more than 99% of the students will welcome that. If I say that everybody will get a B, then maybe 20% of them will not like it. Well, maybe even 1/3 of them will not like it. If I say that everybody will get an F, then everybody would hate it. Now that would be total equality. But so when we are teaching, we know that absolute equality won't work. So when we look at income distribution, I think the fair thing to do is to reward those people who have performed better, who have been working harder, who have invested a lot of their time in making all these achievements and so on. Otherwise, many of the people will complain that they have been treated unfairly. But still, we don't want the disparity to be too wide. That could create other political problems. So, as pointed out here, those people who have claimed that income distribution have become more unequal may have some justifications. But let me try to use additional data to point out that they're not quite correct. Okay. Now, these people have also pointed out that from 1997 to 2009, the median nominal household income has gone down. By nominal, I mean that we have not taken inflation or deflation into account. So they look at the household income, and this claim is correct. Indeed, if we look at the official statistics, the one in the middle, I mean, the family right in the middle in terms of the ranking of the income. I mean, that household income has gone down a little bit, by about 2 or 3% or so. So over, say, 12 years of time, well, if that income has gone down, so then there may be something pretty bad happening. And at the same time, the so-called real per capita GDP, which has taken into account the population changes and also the changes in the prices, have gone up by 44.2% in the same period. So people are saying that, well, the economy has been growing, but at the same time, the lower half of the people, well, have got less income. So where has the wealth gone to? The wealth must have gone to the rich people. So again, if you ask me whether this claim seems to be very reasonable, I think it is. It is reasonable. But again, this conclusion is, I mean, the implication of this statement is misleading, as I will say, I would mention in just a minute. Another piece of evidence that they have used is that, well, they can look at the income of the person at the top 95 percentile, okay, a kind of rich, a relatively rich guy, okay, and then you look at the person at the bottom, the 5 percentile, the 5th percentile person, and you compare them. You divide the 95 percentile income by the 5 percentile person, and that ratio seems to be increasing, and that should mean that that may indicate that the rich is getting more money, the poor is getting less. Again, that seems to be a very reasonable piece of evidence to say prove that income distribution has widened. Okay. Now, I also remember that Donald Trump, our former chief executive, a few months ago, said that he always believed in the so-called trickle-down theory, and then later on he found that that did not seem to work. I think that that is still working. Now, trickle-down effect means that, well, it's just following Deng Xiaoping's idea. You let some people to become rich first, and then once those people become richer, then because they need the consumption and because they need to hire more people, then the income for the lower classes may also tend to go up. Okay, well, the problem is that, okay, now if you have some water above, then the water will just keep trickling down. But I want to point out that there's actually no water above. But there's no trickling down because there's just no water there. Okay, so it's not that the theory is wrong. It's just that Hong Kong has not really been growing. I mean, the economy in Hong Kong has not been actually it's not growing fast enough. Okay, now so let me address those issues one by one. Now, has the GDP really gone up? Now, the number of households have gone up significantly because many retired people have zero income, have formed 1-member or 2-member new families. That, well, when you look at the median income, well, you are actually looking at the median household income, so we use the household as the unit. And then over the last 15 years or so, there has been a big increase in the number of households. The population has not gone up that much, but the number of households have gone up a lot. Why is that the case? Because of the aging of the population in Hong Kong. So many of these people who retired, they form just single-member families, or say two-member families. And almost by definition, these people have no income because they retired. So if you include those people into the sample, that of course will pull down the median. In the past, there were there were not that many such families. But are these families necessarily very poor? Not quite. Some of these families could be quite wealthy, because of the savings, previous savings. However, if you look at the income, they retire, they more or less have no income, okay? So this is a kind of a statistical misconception here. And the government itself has also done some pretty productive exercises. The government has also looked at the Gini coefficient for the economically active. That is, they have got rid of the sample people who have retired. And then they find that the Gini coefficient, first of all, is relatively lower than before, but that's not the key thing. The key thing is that compare, say, 2001 to 201, a 10-year period, you don't really see any major decline. And one of the most reasonable things to do is to look at the Gini based on the post-tax household income. So some families have to pay more taxes, some do not. So it is a good idea to adjust for the post-tax, post-benefit income. You actually see some slight decline there. Okay, so the Gini is not going up after you make the proper adjustment. Okay. Now, why has median household income gone down? Well, let us look at this. The GDP measured in real terms, so everything is measured in $207. Okay, so inflation or deflation has already been taken into account here. So indeed, from 1997 to 2009, there seems to be a 44% increase in the real GDP. So there seems to be some economic growth there, but let us be careful. Now, if we look at the nominal GDP, it has gone down by much less. So a big chunk of the increase in so-called real GDP is that prices in 1997, prices in 2009 were cheaper, much cheaper than prices in 1997. But then if you try to talk to common people, including me, do you feel that the prices were cheaper in 2009? I don't think so. I don't think so. But is the government telling a lie? I don't think so. The government is using an index called the GDP deflator. And according to that index, the prices have gone down by almost 20%. Okay? Now, but we don't feel it. I mean, the consumer price index actually will be roughly the same when we compare 2009 and 1997. The prices now are higher than 1997, but several years ago, they were roughly the same as 1997. So, but what is happening is that that's a GDP deflator has measured the decline in prices because of, say, because of the exported goods, because of some machineries, and so on and so forth. And those have really very little or even nothing to do with the everyday life of the people. So people don't feel that they have just got that kind of increase in income. And because the consumer price indices remain roughly the same, I think it is even, well, for this particular period, it's even better or more appropriate to use the nominal value. So we can ignore the deflation and inflation because there will be no change in the prices. Okay? But another issue is that the number of households have gone up by 22.5%. There has been a huge increase in the number of households. So if you look at the household income, you need to divide the GDP by the number of households. So the denominator has gone up by so much. So there's so many more households in Hong Kong. Therefore, on the average, household will have less income. Okay, but the household sizes have become much smaller. And well, if you ask me whether say a 5-member family which has say $10,000 of income is richer or poorer than say a 1-member family with $5,000 of income, I would say that this 5-member family is actually poorer. I mean, there are so many more members, so we need to take the number of members into account. Okay, so if you look at the average household income, not the median income, the average income, well, it has actually gone down by 3%. Now, so so this decline in the average is consistent with the decline in the median of the income. So, in other words, well, even though Hong Kong seems to be growing, the speed of the growth is very limited, and therefore people don't feel that they have more income. And when the government reports that well the economy is growing, they naturally will think that well other people have stolen their income. And nobody, well you talk to the rich, well some of the rich will of course have more income, some of them, okay, but some of the rich have also become poorer than before, okay. If you talk to the poor, some of them become richer than before, some of them become poorer than before. So it depends on whom you talk to, okay. But if you look at the aggregate statistics, we don't have the evidence to conclude that income distribution has become more widened. Now, the large increase, okay, now how about this ratio, 95%, 95th percentile versus the 5th percentile problem? Many people have not noticed that in around the year 2000, there have been a proliferation of part-time workers in Hong Kong. We are talking about an increase of hundreds of thousands of part-time workers in Hong Kong. When people work part-time, they don't get high income. Okay? They may work for 10 hours, 15 hours per week. Now, before that time, these people did not work, therefore they have zero income, and therefore they were not counted. They were not counted in the statistics. And now these people have got more income, but then they began to be counted. And therefore, when you look at this lower 5 percentile people, it seems that the income is rather low. If we included those people several years before that, those people even should have a zero income. And you divide anything by zero, that becomes infinity. I mean, that is even bigger, okay? Now, you look at the top income people. Well, indeed, some people at the top have got the income. And I think that there's some good thing. Well, there have been some new jobs that have been created. And some people have acquired all these marketable skills. It is not a good idea to say to ask this question, how come that your income has gone up? I mean, to me, it's really a good thing. But of course, we need to try to help the poor to increase their income. So income distribution in Hong Kong has always been bad, but it has not worsened. It has always been bad. The real issue is the stagnation in economic growth. The trickle-down theory is not wrong. There's just no water to trickle down. Now, so let me quickly give another example. Are the developers to be blamed for the high housing prices? If you ask me whether I love the developers, I won't say so, because I have to pay pretty high prices to buy this apartment. Okay, but we also need to be fair. Developers will always try to maximize their profit, and in some cases they might have done some things excessively. So if some people want to complain against them, I would ask them to campaign also on my behalf. Okay, but again, we need to be fair now. Can they really monopolize the market? I doubt it. The biggest developer in Hong Kong, and I think that should be Sun Hung Kai Properties, okay, can some point of time can supply up to 25% of the new units. If it has 25% of the total market share, then it does have some monopoly power. It's not complete monopoly power, but it does have some. But we have to recognize that the vast majority of the transactions in the market occur in the secondary market. So even Sun Hung Kai Properties at any point of time is only 3 or 4% of the entire market share. 0 or 4% will still mean that there's some market power, but it's very weak market power. It's not that they don't want to monopolize, but it's not that easy for them to do so. Well, this is a diagram on the private flats completed from 1997 to 2001. I haven't got a chart about the housing prices here, but for those people who are familiar with Hong Kong, you can see that during this period, 2002 or 2003 and so, well, housing prices in Hong Kong were pretty low. People were frustrated. There was this negative equity class, and of course, I mean, the number of flats completed was high. And then the government changed the policy, and then it keeps on the houses keep going down. So in 2009, the quantity supply was very low. So you may remember that in 2009, that was the year after the financial tsunami, but beginning in March of that year, the prices have already accelerated. I mean, so it has defied the financial tsunami. The reason is very, very simple. I mean, the quantity supply is very small. And so the key is that, well, the key for the high housing prices is really the supply, and that is the land issue. Now, well, most people in Hong Kong, I believe, have already recognized that it's a land issue. But I have to tell you that several years ago, when I mentioned that it was a supply issue, a land issue, many people on the internet would criticize me as a guy who just talking nonsense and so on. It's just due to other factors. But so lots of people are just denying that the land supply was really the basic cause. Okay, many companies have opened headquarters in Hong Kong, but well, tourism as a share of GDP has gone up from less than 2% to 3.5% of the GDP. Well, every day when we go to Tsim Sha Tsui or go to Central, we see that there are lots of people carrying suitcases, and many Hong Kong people complain about that. But if people feel the benefits of the coming, they should not complain that hard. But the problem is that how come that they don't seem to feel that kind of benefits? And there are good reasons for that. Well, let me use a kind of simple economic supply and demand. Imagine that the supply of, say, offices or shops is fixed, is limited. So this is the supply curve. Well, for either the office space or the shops. Okay, and we have a negatively sloping demand curve. So if the rents are higher, then people would like to have fewer of this. Okay. Now, if in the beginning we have a supply and demand, and then the rents will be at this level, the total quantity rented out will be given by this, and then suddenly there are more tourists coming to Hong Kong, and there are more headquarters coming to Hong Kong. The demand for offices or for shops have gone up. So we should have a new rent, a higher rent. Now, there's a little bit of technical analysis here. From the point of view of the renters or the tenants, okay, how much benefit have they got by renting the land? They have paid the rent, but they must have derived some benefit from that. It can be shown that the area of this triangle is a good measurement of how much that they can benefit. The rectangle here is a measurement of how much the landowner has benefited. Now there is an increase in these shops. So after that, we have a new triangle. You can see that the benefit of the rent of the tenants remain roughly the same, even though well, there are more customers. Now they have to pay more rent. So, but the benefit for the landlords have gone up from this small triangle to the big triangle. So in a sense, whenever the supply land is fixed, it's just economic analysis will tell us that essentially all the benefit will be reaped by the landlord. So this is not a very good scenario. So how are we going to mitigate that? It is pretty simple. If the land supply is not fixed, or that is when the rent is higher, people can supply more offices, people can supply more shops, then it will be possible to show that both the tenants and the landlord will share the benefits. Now, the benefit of the tenants in the before the increase is this small triangle. Now, after the increase in demand, it will be this big triangle, and then big triangle. And then for the landlord, before that it is this small rectangle, and then after the rent increase is the bigger rectangle. So both will benefit. They will share all the additional benefits. Therefore, it is important to let the market to be able to respond to higher demands. So if the rent is higher, you need to be able to supply more land. But the land usage still is a big problem. Now, Hong Kong has total area of 1108 square kilometers, but now the total area used to build private residential buildings is just 25 square kilometers. It's a very small proportion of the total area in Hong Kong. The land used for building public housing 16. The land used for these new territories houses is 35 square kilometers, which is pretty big. Okay, and then they don't house that many people. But now, the strange thing is that for commercial buildings, the total area, including this building, it only occupies 4 square kilometers. The industrial buildings occupies 10 square kilometers, and there's not much industry in Hong Kong anymore. But the industries are occupy more land. Okay, now it's very difficult to change the industrial buildings into commercial buildings. But right now, if we look at these numbers, there apparently is some misallocation of resources, and I hope that the government can rectify that. Because of limitation of time, let me quickly summarize by saying something about politics. We also observe that the Hong Kong society seems to be getting more polarized. Why is that the case now? In the usual case in most countries, political parties will try to appeal to the median voter, because this median voter, there will be a lot of people whose opinions will be close to the median voter. This is a distribution of the different opinion of different political positions and so on. If your position is here, you're not likely to get too many votes. Okay. So you have no incentive to go to the extreme. However, in Hong Kong, there are indeed some people try to really minimize the number of people who are in the middle. They try to come up with a radical idea, so we have a bipolar distribution. Now, the advantage for these politicians is that they can get more votes. Well, but the whole thing is actually caused by the electoral system in Hong Kong. Hong Kong has this one vote for every voter, but there are many seats. So many seats in each district. So each politician who wants to become, say, a legislator does not have to get that many votes. Okay. So if they try to polarize, they can still put more of their members there. Now, however, if you come up with a system with multiple seats but multiple votes, that won't happen. The people who are not close to the median voters' opinions simply will not possibly get enough votes to get elected. Or alternatively, if you imitate the system of the US, the Congress, okay, the number of voters in each district is limited. But they can only elect one congressman in each district, only one vote and one seat. Now that also would mitigate the whole thing, okay? And if you still have many seats, but you introduce a system with many, each person can vote. Say, if there are 5 seats, then each person can cast 5 votes. Then outcome will also be totally different. And there are a lot of technical things related to the economics of voting that that we can come up with. But then this kind of polarization, I believe, is caused by the electoral system. And once society is polarized, even democracy cannot help to resolve the problems. So imagine that people are divided because of religion. This group of people believe in this religion and the other believe in the other, and then it's very hard for them to reconcile. Or if they have differences in races, group A would just hate the race of the group B people. So democracy simply cannot work. Democracy may be the best system, and even this cannot help. Okay, therefore, I think that polarization is not very good for the long-term benefits of Hong Kong. But in Hong Kong, it's difficult or even impossible to polarize society by religion or by race. However, some politicians have come up with a new and ingenious method, and that is to polarize Hong Kong by some kind of attitude towards the mainland. I'm rather neutral myself in that regard. Okay? But it seems to me to be a very powerful tool. If you are pro-China, you are regarded to belong to one group. If you are, anti-China, you belong to the other group. Most of the people may be somewhat in the middle, but then they don't want to have that to happen. They try to create a lot of issues so that people could be polarized. And there will be a lot of political benefits from doing that. So long as the electoral system cannot change, I don't think there's a polarization problem to disappear. Now, the last thing that I want to mention is that I'm concerned that there could be a downward swirling trap. People can engage, some people in society can engage in productive activities. So say engineers, doctors, for example, can engage in productive activities, okay? But there could also always be some people who try to specialize in, say, this privately productive, but socially unproductive activities. So they're not producing anything for society, but they will just try to reap more benefits for themselves. It's like making up. Some people will make a pie, and then some people specialize in getting a larger share of the pie. So from the private point of view, it's rational for them to do so. But it requires a certain skills. If you ask me to try to fight for resources at my university, for example, then I would recommend other people to do it. I'm not very good at doing that, okay? But there's some people who are very good. Okay, so once these people have become good at it, they specialize in that, and other people seeing that may also try to imitate. So there will be some human capital, some expertise built in that regard, and the amount of productive activities could go down, and that is also not very good for the economy. So a society could be trapped at a low-level equilibrium in that sense. I don't simply even want to say that doable solutions. Well, how are we going to do it to solve these problems? And this is only a quick summary. As I've said, one of the most essential problems is that the Hong Kong economy has not been growing fast enough. And that has slowed down even the social mobility. I haven't shown the data, but the data has shown that income distribution has not widened, but social mobility, or the ability to rise from the lower half to the upper half, have slowed down. That is a problem. Okay, if we want to speed up the social mobility, we need to have high economic growth rate. Otherwise, where would the higher salaries come from? Okay, so we need to develop businesses that cannot be replicated, and the cities in China are competing fiercely with Hong Kong. So there are lots of opportunities around, but if we just sit there, then gradually these opportunities will be gone. Even for this issue like the internationalization of the RMB, which may be good for Hong Kong. I mean, if we don't try to do anything, I mean, places like Qinghai, or even Shenzhen, or Shanghai can easily take over. Okay. Oh, yeah, that just shows that this is the last page. Okay. There are some things that Hong Kong is good at. I have been a recruiter for 20 years for UST. So every year I have to go to US to recruit people, and then many people, there's a big pool of scientific talents who would like to come to Hong Kong. And I have looked at this statistic, if we can attract, say, 20 to 30,000 people to come to Hong Kong, then I think that we don't have to worry about any of this downward swirling trend at all. Okay. Okay. So Eden is there. So this is the last page. Okay.